In this lesson, I'm going to go over the basic setup of this rig and also how to make a shortcut here that's going to allow us to select all of our controllers to keyframe. Okay, let's first kind of do a rundown through the character's rig here. I'm going to open up my outliner and drop it in over here on the side, so I have that. And just looking at the beefy character here, we can kind of see how it's all been broken down and grouped together with its constraints. And this is something that the rigger will do. A combination of the modeler and the rigger will do this. And what we're not seeing here on the character is the actual rig itself. The rig is hidden, and we're seeing the controllers that are constrained or attached to the rig that allow us to give motion to the character and animate it. So the rig itself is not anything that we're going to be accessing. We're just going to be using the controllers, and that's what I'm going to take you through right now. So our main controller here on the ground sometimes looks like a ring. Quite often it looks more like an arrow pointing forward in the direction that the character is facing forward. In the case of this rig, we've got just a NURBS circle. So these are all constructed out of NURBS curves. Okay, and we'll see the name over here. So this is Beefy Main S shape. So it's just a curve here. And typically we don't animate this. It can be animated. In this one we're going to be actually walking the character in place. I'm not going to have it walk across the screen here. We're going to just walk it in place, and we'll leave this one alone and not keyframe it. Okay, sometimes the main controller has additional functions on it if there are things that the character or particular object can do, such as change color or have different clothing that comes on. This quite often is usually accessed through the main controller. Okay, so just moving up the chain here, I'm going to grab the next ring up here, and this one that's usually around the hips is called the root controller. And it's called the root control because the very first joint that is put down on the character usually starts at the root of the spine. It goes up to the top of the neck here, and then the arms will connect off of that, and then the neck goes up into the head controller, and then off of the root joint here the hips will come over and then attach to the joint chain that goes down the leg and to the foot. Okay, so we've got our root control right here. This one I'm mostly just going to be using to make the character go up and down. Okay, that up and down movement, it's not going to jump, but I'm just sort of showing you what this does. Okay. Alright, and this is different than this controller here on the inside. So this is the hip control, and this is used more for just the character walking, okay, or moving, dancing. Okay, so I've just got the rotation on. Okay, and then up the spine here, the controller's on the spine. As you can see over here, all we can do with this particular controller is rotate it. So you want to have your channel box open over here, and this will tell you what you can do with each of these controllers as you select them. So with this one I can only rotate it, so it's functioning like a spine would. Okay, side to side. Okay, and up to, let me zero that one out again. Alright, and the next joint is just pretty much doing the same thing. And I'll zero that one out. You can also shift select these, and it will allow you to, rotate all of those at the same time. Okay. And then moving up here, we've got a neck control. Okay, so that's for the neck area. Okay, we've also got a head control up here. Okay, so this is working a little bit differently than the neck control. Okay, and we've got this top of the spine control here, so the chest area also has a controller on it. Okay, so it does this, as well as this. Okay. And it does say translate as well, I'm not sure. So this character actually has some ability to do squash and stretch, but we are not going to be doing that in this lesson here. We're not going to do any exaggeration. Okay, and then just moving down here, we've got the clavicles, and the clavicles only rotate. Okay, so you can kind of rotate the clavicles forward or back. Okay. And then moving down the arm, this arm is set up for forward kinematics, so FK. And I know that because I can see each of the controllers for the joint areas here. And we will be using this as we animate the character. We're going to be in forward kinematics on the arms and inverse kinematics on the legs. Okay, so the elbow only rotates in Y, which makes sense there. And the wrist can rotate in all directions. Okay. And then down here on the hand, we've got controllers over each of the areas of the joints where it's going to bend. So I'm actually going to shift select, just making that smaller with the minus key. Shift selecting those, and then I can control all of them. Okay. Same thing with the finger and the thumb, they operate the same way. There is a controller right here for the palm of the hand, I believe. Alright, so we want the character pointing. And then I'm going to switch this one over here and show you what inverse kinematics would look like on the arm. It's going to be this switch on the back here. So grabbing that, I now have a switch over here for the arm, switch from IK to FK. So it's usually 0 and 1. There shouldn't be anything in between, so it's either on or off. And you can see the 3 rings have gone away over the main joints, like we have on this arm. We now have a single controller down here that allows us to move the arm. Okay. And I am not going to be using this approach for all the poses that we're going to be using on the arm as it walks. This is something that I would use if I, let's say, want the character to lean on something. Let me just drop in a polygon cube. Bring it over here. And let's say the character was resting its arm over here on a stand. And that's probably a little high. Just cheat that down a bit and do something like that. So forward kinematics, we have control over each one of the joints and we would move them independently. So if I wanted to lock the character's hand on a table, or in this case on this column right here, and have the body move without that hand moving, I would switch it into inverse kinematics. Okay, so it's going to allow me to do this. And you can see over here with this hand, it's moving with the body. Okay, so with forward kinematics, the hierarchy of the joint chain is starting from the shoulder and going down to the wrist and then into the hand. I'm going to take this character back to its original pose here. Just undo all of that and just give you a little overview of how the rig is working in here. So I'm going to just go ahead and switch this back to, okay, so you can see the difference between the two. So what's happening here on forward kinematics, if I were to draw out, I'll go to my top view, if I were to draw out a joint chain under animation, actually let's go to rigging, under rigging, create joint chain. So I would start a joint up here on the shoulder area in the middle, come out to the elbow, and I'm intentionally pushing it to the back side, and then down here to the wrist, and I hit enter and it draws out that joint chain. I come to my perspective view and it's right there on the ground, so I'm just going to drag that up into place. Okay. So what would happen, so what's happening with the forward kinematics is each one of these joints is being controlled by this ring here, the controller. As they rotate, the joint chain that is going forward down this hierarchy is following along with this rotation or this motion. Okay, so if I select this one and move it, it moves the wrist, and we don't have anything attached to the wrist, so this would just stay here. Okay, so that's what forward kinematics is doing. What inverse kinematics is doing, it's adding an IK handle. So I'm going to create an IK handle from the shoulder to the wrist, and you can see there is a controller here now that once I move that, it's actually working in the opposite direction. So it's inversing that hierarchy of that joint chain. So now when I grab the wrist joint, it moves everything behind it in the reverse order. Okay, so that's what inverse kinematics is. All right, so the legs have inverse kinematics built in with them. You can also switch them. That's what this switch is right here. We don't often need to switch out of IK when we're animating a character, especially one that's walking, because we want those feet to stick on the ground. Okay? But that's what these controllers are here on the back. So let's just take a quick look at the feet here. We've got two controllers on the feet. We've got the main controller, and then we've got one for the toe here. Okay? Usually I come back and use the toe control when I'm having some issues with the toe rolling through the floor, when the character is rolling over the ball of its foot. Sometimes we have an issue there, and I'm going back and using this to control that. Okay? But for this particular rig, I can get most of what I want out of this main foot controller right here. And you can see what it says here. It says foot IK. Okay, so that's inverse kinematics. And you'll notice over here that it has some channels that are unique. Okay, so we have the ability to lock a knee. It's going to lock it to this this pull right here, this controller. Okay, and we will probably not be doing that. We're not doing anything too extreme in this walk cycle, so we shouldn't need to use this lock. Okay, we've also got foot tilt, and with my middle mouse button I'm going to come over here and just drag side to side, and you can see what it's doing. Okay, so that's the foot tilt. Okay, and then heel ball is what we're mostly going to be working with for our walk cycle. So that is sort of that rocking motion that we have when we are walking. Okay, and then we've got toe up and down. Okay, and then we've got ball swivel. Okay. We won't be using too much of that either. If the character were doing a sneak or sliding around or dancing, the ball swivel comes in pretty handy for that. Okay, so that kind of covers the rig. Okay, I'm going to show you how to make the shortcut here that allows you to select the controllers with one click of the button. It also deselects the main control here on the bottom, so we're not keyframing that. First, I'm just going to click off the character. I have nothing selected. I'm going to open up my script editor, and I'm going to just clear everything. And then I'm going to go ahead and drag a marquee over the entire character. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and deselect the main controller. And now I'm going to come over here and just click and drag. I'm highlighting all of the text in here. And under File, I'm going to say Save Script to Shelf. So I've already got Beefy out there. I'm going to just put Demo out here. You can call it whatever you want. I called mine Beefy. That's the one I'm going to keep. Go ahead and click OK, and it's going to ask you what type of script you want to use. So I'm going to just select MEL, that's Maya Embedded Language, the native language of Maya. And you can see it went out here on the shelf. So if I click off the character here, I just want to check it and make sure that it's working, and it looks like it's doing what it's supposed to do. Okay, so that's how you make the shortcut. And I'm going to delete this one here. I'm just right mouse clicking and deleting that. Okay, we'll come back in the next lesson and start blocking out the first pose.